Episode 74 of the Habs Culture podcast. My name is Justin Schwartz, and I'm alongside my friend Liam Baum. There hasn't been much that's happened in the NHL this past week since the last time we spoke, unfortunately. The Habs have only played one game. They were on the road in Washington. They actually took that game by a wide margin. And if I recall correctly, Liam, you and I both had the Habs losing that game to Washington right after the break, or am I mistaken here?
For some reason, I think I said they would have won. I don't know. I can't remember.
Well, look, maybe you said they won. I know I definitely said that they were going to take an L. So it was nice to see them score 5 goals in that game. 2 quick goals from Nick Suzuki in the first period, followed by another first period goal from Pizzetta. And then all of a sudden, in the third period, early in the third, Juraj Slafkovsky on a pass from Jake Evans, a little toe drag release action, top right. So everyone's going crazy, right? Because that's Slafkovsky's probably one of his nicer goals of his career to date, right? Through his 89 games in his career. And then fast forward maybe a few minutes into the third period, and just on a nice, finally, a pass from Matheson over to Slafkovsky on that right side, who absolutely wires it past Darcy Kemper, past his glove, to take a commanding lead in the third period, take home the victory for the Montreal Canadiens. But the thing I want to focus on here, Liam, is not the fact that the Canadiens won, but it's the fact that this 19-year-old's growth through 89 games in his career has been so substantial, to the point where we're now talking about a guy who has 22 points in 50 games this season. Weren't we talking about this a few weeks ago and talking about the fact that if he gets to half a point per game for the rest of the season, that would be an accomplishment. That would be a success.
That was the goal. Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, if you guys saw the post on TikTok and on Insta at Habs Culture, you saw that Slav has had 13 points in the last 20 games. And I actually kind of messed it up because he has more points in less games. I think he had 13 and 19, actually. So, adding 2 more, first ever 2-goal game for him. And finally, a goal that's like actually nice. Like, it's like in NHL when you get the achievement. You finally unlock the toe drag release. So it was really nice to see. Honestly, like very, very nice to see Matheson also pass it over to him and finally hit the net, or even just get the shot off, really. There's been so many times where he's whiffed, but he finally got the shot off, and absolutely amazing goal. And then obviously Twitter starts blowing up. Oh, Slav is going to be scary. Yeah, well, we've been saying that. We've been saying that.
And Liam, I don't know about you, but I think we can both agree that us saying that Slav was going to be good was not from a biased perspective. It wasn't a biased take. I think we really truthfully believe that a 19-year-old who's 6'4", 230 pounds, who has a Rantanen type build, who has an incredible work ethic, and we'll get to that soon, who's willing to put in the work, and if you pair him with a couple good players in Caufield and Suzuki, you're going to see some production. And like you mentioned in our post that we made on Instagram and TikTok, he's been putting up points, and he's almost at a half point per game on the season. And let's not forget, he had 2 or 3 points within the first 20 games of the season. So he's really, really picked it up. 32 games left. Let's hope that he can continue on that pace. But the one thing I want to ask you, Liam, here, right off the top, he sits at 9 goals on the season in 50 games. I'm going to give you an over-under here.
Oh, here we go.
Does Juraj Slafkovsky go over or under 17 goals on the season?
How many games do we have left? 32?
32.
32 games, and he'd need 10 goals? Less than 10 goals. 8 goals?
He would need 8 goals to hit 17.
Okay. I like it.
You like it?
Yeah. Give me a push. I'll push here. He's getting
Fair enough. He's getting 17 on the dot.
17 on the dot. We'll say that. I like that.
Look, but to put it in perspective, though, if we're looking at a second-year guy, a 19-year-old, and I know I've emphasized that a couple times already today, but it's the truth. If we see Juraj Slafkovsky get to 15 goals, and I think that's being relatively moderate, I mean, I think that's a win, right? 15 goals in your building.
For sure.
Maybe next year you're looking at 20, 25, whatever it may be, right? So
if you're looking back, we've compared this so many times. You're looking back at Jack Hughes' first 2 seasons, 20 points in his first 80 games, and then the season after that, like 30, 40 maybe. and then all of a sudden he blows up and he was showing promise. I think Slav is developing quicker than Jack Hughes. Maybe Slav is probably not reaching the potential Jack Hughes and the skill and talent he has, but he's developing much quicker. And there were a lot of comments all over Twitter from all these different analysts saying they've never seen a guy who's shown so much development between his first and second year. So that's so promising for the Canadiens. And it was bound to happen. He's still 19 years old. We say this every episode. It's a game of patience at the end of the day. And you see him in all these videos in the last 2 days. The guy's ripping pucks like no tomorrow around the net, finding different spots on the ice to, perfect his shot on the ice late with Gouli, or staying after practice, not getting on the ice late, but he's putting in the work. He's putting in the work, and it's going to come. And finally, we're seeing the glimpses of it. So it's very exciting.
The last thing I'll say on this topic, and kind of what you were alluding to there with the progression, is that I was talking about this with a friend, and the truth of the matter is that the players that you see progress from season to that you see progress from season to season are the ones, and especially in their young careers, are the ones that you're going to see have the most promising careers. Because if you see that they're willing to put in the work and actually get to a different level in their game year over year over year, I think that shows the most. I don't know what the word would be, but I think it shows the most. It's the most encouraging sign. Put it that way. So
he's dedicated.
So look,
he's very dedicated.
And look, if you want to look at guys that didn't put in the work, whether it was Nail Yakupov, for example, like you saw their careers you saw his career crumble before our very own eyes, right? And even a guy like Capo Caco, I hate to say it, and I know I mentioned that he would maybe be a good trade target for the Canadiens, and that was because he's very much a buy low. But the truth of the matter is, since his 18-year-old season, he hasn't really progressed as a hockey player. I don't even mean from a point perspective, but as a hockey player. He hasn't taken his game to that next level since being that second overall pick. So you kind of see these trends early, and I think that's nice. It's encouraging to see from Slafkovsky in his 19-year-old season that he's taken a significant jump from the first 39 games in his career.
And again, I mean, maybe Kako's not in the best position because he was put on a good team with a strong top six. He's never gotten the chance to play those big minutes. But thankfully, that's not the case with Slafkovsky, and management hasn't messed up this year. They put him on the first line, and he's been on the first line for a while. So again, it's very encouraging to see that he's progressing in the right way and progressing playing with the right players at the same time. He's not just a dead weight on the first line. He's actually a big part of the team and a big part of the power play right now.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it's very encouraging. It's fun to watch because in a season where it seems completely lost, there's always a few positives. And I think the biggest positive right now is that first line and that power play unit. And speaking of, Suzuki probably is on pace for 70 plus points. Caufield's picking up his goal pace. Matheson's having a really good season for a defenseman. So, things are looking up despite the injuries and despite the lost season.
You know what someone pointed out quickly, just to jump in?
Yeah, go ahead.
That post that we posted the other day with the players going into the second half, every single one of them on that post got a point in the game. Someone pointed that out in the comments, obviously other than Montembeault. So, I mean, guys, we know our stuff.
Well, there you go. That's these are players to watch out for. These are guys that are going to have to carry the load the rest of the way. 32 games left. It's going to be interesting to see. And I don't think it's going to be necessarily from the standpoint of, are the Habs going to be winning games? It's going to be individual development and production that's going to matter the most carrying into the 2024-25 season, which is really weird to say because I feel like, like we were very far away from 2024-2025. But anyway, let's switch topics here, Liam. We've seen two of the bigger fish come off the board in Elias Lindholm and Sean Monahan. And we'll add in Kuzmenko there. I guess you can call him one of the bigger trade targets because he was clearly underperforming in Vancouver. Lindholm scores 2 goals in his debut for Vancouver. And Kuzmenko scores a goal in his debut for the Calgary Flames. So that was pretty cool to watch because, environment is very, very important for players like this. And to see them both flourish early is nice. And especially for Kuzmenko, because I feel like, he had 70 plus points last year in Vancouver, gets Rick. He's clearly not Rick Tocchet's favorite player, gets kind of, thrown to the wolves on that third, fourth line role relatively early this season. and now he scores a goal. He's playing on that top line with Huberdeau and Sharangovich, so that's nice to see. You have any remarks about those two guys and their respective teams right now?
Uh, I mean, yeah, amazing debuts. Can't ask for anything more if you're a Flames or Canucks fan. And maybe just looking at you know the positives that these guys will bring to the guys around them. Jonathan Huberdeau gets 3 points, looked a lot better. So, maybe this unlocks their capability, their skill again. Kadri, very happy, very pumped up after that win against Boston. And Kuzmenko came off the ice and was like, okay, now it's time to make the playoffs. So, I mean, you got to be happy if you're a Flames fan. You got a guy who wants to be there after, hearing about all these guys who wanted to leave. So, nice to see Kuzmenko, and then Elias Lindholm fitting in perfectly, playing with Pedersen on the second line, so his fellow Swede, and he gets 2 pretty nice goals on the power play as well in his debut.
There you go. And on that topic, I think that despite being sellers at the deadline, and I think it's relatively obvious from Calgary's standpoint, I still have a weird feeling that they're going to make the playoffs. I do have a weird feeling about it. Now, they're not that far out of it. I think they might be 4 or 5 points out of the playoffs in that Western Conference. If you want to, actually,
Yeah,
I have
okay.
that in front of me, so no
They're
problem there.
Only 3 points.
There you go. So 3 points out of a wild card spot in the West. And I just feel like they have a lot of guys that have a lot to prove, right? I mean, Huberdeau has clearly seen a dip in his career. I think he wants to turn it around and prove something. I think Kuzmenko has a lot to prove since being shipped from Vancouver. Kadri, same thing from after coming over from Colorado just a couple of years ago. They have young guys in Zary and Coronado. So I think that they have a lot to prove. And I think that guys like Hanifin, Chris Tanev, and Markstrom, who are all considered trait bait right now, are trying to prove their worth on this Calgary team. And this might actually lead them to making that last wild card spot and maybe showing off what they have in store in the playoffs. So I think that could be an interesting avenue for we'll call it a team that might not know necessarily their direction right now.
Yeah, I guess the next 10 to 15 games will decide where they go. And to me, still, I was very high on the Flames before the season started. I still very much believe they have a very strong team on paper and are very capable of making the playoffs over a team like St. Louis, who lost basically like half their forward core in the last 2 years. So I don't think it's out of the picture yet that to make the playoffs for the Calgary Flames.
Absolutely. And staying on a similar topic here, now that Lindholm and Sean Monahan are off the board, and Kuzmenko, put it that way, the next biggest guy up, in my opinion, I think we can both agree, is Noah Hanifin, paired with his teammate Chris Tanev. These are two guys that I would say a move is imminent here. I think something's going to happen within the week. I think teams are trying to acquire Noah Hanifin as soon as possible. Now, he's carrying a $4.95 million cap hit, and he becomes a UFA at the end of the season. Noah Hanifin is a younger player. I don't know his I'm going to pull it up here, his exact age.
Late 20s.
He's 27.
Yeah.
But I really do think that any team that acquires Noah Hanifin, whether it's as a rental or for a team that wants to re-sign him and wants him to be a part of their next 5-6 years of their team build, I think he's very, very valuable. And I think that any team that gets him is going to get a guy that logs a ton of minutes, a left-hand shot. He's 6'3". He has NHL experience. And I think he has a lot of untapped offensive potential because in Calgary, he's never really got that first power play role. It's always been either Rasmus Andersson or Mackenzie Weegar. So, and even early in his career in Carolina, he didn't get much of that role either. So I think that any team that gets him is going to be really, really lucky. Now, my question to you, Liam, and I don't know if you have any off the top of your head, but is there any team that you can see acquiring Noah Hanifin at the deadline this season before he becomes UFA?
Yeah, I was just going to mention, like, Hanifin does have so much untapped potential, and there's just so many teams that could go after. Obviously, they need to make the cap work, but he slots into any top four that's looking to make a big playoff push. So, really, a lot of these teams, I'm just pulling them up right now, but obviously, we're hearing so much buzz around the Leafs trying to acquire him, but I feel like that's just because Sportsnet loves the Leafs, so they're always going to be talking about the Leafs getting the big guy, but I think Florida can acquire, a shutdown D-man. They're looking to make a big push. So I think he'd fit in pretty well there. And New York has had the Rangers have been having some defensive issues. So again, be cool to see him go there. But I think he really does slot into any top four that needs that top guy who can play that power play one role, even though he hasn't in the past. What about you?
Yeah, I could see that. I think any contending team is absolutely, it makes sense to absolutely make a push. One team that I have in mind for Noah Hanifin, which might be a little bit, you know, a little bit of a different take, but it's the St. Louis Blues. I mean, sitting in that second wild card in the West right now, they have a very, very young core. And I feel like obviously they have Pareko and they have Torrey Krug and they have Scott Perunovich and they have, and then they have the likes of Nick Leddy, who's a little bit older. But to add a guy like Hanifin to their team when they haven't had someone like that since Pietrangelo, a big defenseman who can log some significant minutes. And look, if they do end up sneaking into the playoffs, right, because that West is so wide open right now, then you're really getting a valuable player. And I don't see a reason why he wouldn't re-sign for in Calgary, for example. Now it's gonna be interesting to see what trade would necessarily move the needle. And I'm not saying that St. Louis is even particularly interested, but I'm saying that it could be something that works. But Jacob Verana is a guy that's been up and down with them in Springfield, and then he goes back up to St. Louis and then back down. They have a few first-round picks after the trades that they made last season. So if he was a guy that maybe they saw as part of their future in this retool/rebuild phase of Doug Armstrong's tenure as GM with the St. Louis Blues, I think he could be a really interesting option for them in the short and longer term.
Yeah, actually, I like that take a lot. In 10 games, if you see, or let's say in 10 games, because I think the deadline is about 12 games away for pretty much the whole league, I'd say. Let's say the Flames win 7 of those 12, are 2 to 3 points out of a playoff spot. Do you see them going all in, as in trading all their guys who are on the board like Tanev, like Hanifin, or do you think they're gonna do? I don't even know how to explain this because I think they're gonna trade them, but do you think it's gonna be more of a retool or trade all these guys away for picks?
I personally think it would be more of a retool. I think that the Calgary Flames are in a very tricky state because you go 2 years back, and this was a team that on paper had everything they needed to succeed and compete in this league for a cup run coming out of the West. Now, things have changed drastically. Lindholm's gone, Goudreau's gone, Matty Tkachuk is gone. They've replaced that with Huberdeau, Uyghur, Kadri. It's a completely different landscape altogether. But the truth of the matter is that on paper and in their pipeline, I think that they have a lot of talent. Now, do they have any talent to take them to that next level? I don't know. So that's why I think it's tricky to say that if they're going to be doing a complete rebuild or just a retool. But I think that if they are, like you said, 2 to 3 points out of a playoff spot and competing to potentially take that second wild card spot in the West, I would say that trading Hanifin, Tanev, and Markstrom would be for the right price. And I know that sounds obvious, but I think it would almost have to be an overpayment for them to do it. Now, it's tricky with a guy like Hanifin, because personally, I don't know if he's going to re-sign in Calgary regardless of what happens. So for them, it might be worth it to get rid of him, even though they're close to the playoffs, because if they're not going to get any assets for him, that would be a huge loss for Calgary.
Yeah, I mean, teams still tend to overpay no matter what. Like, I think they got the best return possible for Elias Lindholm. They get that roster guy who's a proven player, and on top of that, they got a first and 2 prospects. So you get a bit of that retool kind of return, and you get that rebuild return as well. So I'm very curious to see how he's valued and what the offers are, and we'll see it very shortly in the next coming weeks. But I mean, just flipping the page here, Sean Walker from the Philadelphia Flyers is expected to return a first-round pick, or the Flyers are expecting a first-round pick in return. This is a guy that logs, what, a bottom 4 role? If Noah Hanifin, or if Sean Walker is worth a first-round pick, I'd love to see how much Noah Hanifin is going for on this market.
Yeah, it's going to be really, really interesting. My take is that he'll probably end up being traded because I don't think that Calgary wants to necessarily salvage their retool slash rebuild just for one run where they maybe just squeak in, you know? So
Yeah.
we'll see. We'll see. It's definitely something to keep in mind. And as we transition over here to another topic, we're just going to take a quick second to shout out our sponsors at DraftKings.
Looking for a super offer for Super Bowl 58? DraftKings Sportsbook has you covered. New customers can bet on the big game and turn $5 into 200 instantly in bonus bets. Guys, for the Super Bowl, the 49ers are facing off against the Chiefs. Mahomes versus Brock Purdy, and you have all the opportunities to get in on the big game and place a bet with the DraftKings Sportsbook. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now and use code THPN. New customers can bet $5 to get 200 instantly in bonus bets. Only on DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of Super Bowl 58, with code THPN. The crown is yours. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit www.1800gambler.net. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly. On behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort in Kansas, 21 plus age varies by jurisdiction. Void in Ontario. Bonus bets expire 168 hours after issuance. See dkng.com/football for eligibility and deposit restrictions, terms, and responsible gaming resources.
So Liam, this next topic of conversation is something that I think that you will enjoy quite a bit. Now, looking up and down this trade bait board, there's a lot of interesting names, right? Obviously, two of the prominent names are off the board, but we talked about Hanifin, we talked about Tanev. We didn't talk much about Markstrom, but we'll see if he really does get moved or not. Tarasenko's on this list. Jake Allen's on this list. Jake Gensel is on this list. We'll see if Kyle Dubas can make a trade work and ship out Gensel for a realistic return. But I feel like he's, the fact that he's even on the trade bait board to begin with is undervaluing his capabilities, in my opinion.
He's too big of a fish. He's just like
right?
too big of a fish. What the return's got to be immense.
You would like to think.
Yeah.
But on TSN's trade bait board, there's one guy here. There's one guy. He's at number 40. Now, I think he's way too low for one reason. Because for the last 2 to 3 days, Liam, and maybe it's a Twitter influence or maybe it's a social media influence, but there's one thing that I'm feeling in my bones right now as a Montreal Canadiens fan. And don't call me biased because this is just my feeling. Whether it's by the trade deadline or whether it's by the summer, so July around free agency when a lot of trades go down, or around the draft, I see Trevor Zegras being a Montreal Canadien. I do.
That is something I would absolutely love to see. He's on a bridge deal right now. And, some news has come out in the last few days that trade talks with the Ducks over the offseason was really, really nasty. And I'm assuming he obviously wanted more, and they were clearly undervaluing him. Trevor Zegras is a 65-point player in 2 seasons in the NHL. 2.5, whatever it was. This guy has an immense amount of talent. One of the more marketable guys in the NHL. Obviously gets a lot of hate because a lot of people say all he can do is Michigan. And I'm a huge fan of the Michigan. If you know me, big skill guy, love to, do a couple Michigans on the ODR, practice the skill moves. But if I'm the Montreal Canadiens and I see Trevor Zegras is available for trade, not to mention Cole Caufield's best friend, you got to go out and make a move for him because this is something you can't pass up on. Now, if we're talking potential return, the Canadiens have acquired 2 picks for essentially nothing. 2 first-round picks. One from the Calgary Flames for taking Sean Monahan and one for trading him away. If I'm Kent Hughes and I'm in my office, I'm offering to the Ducks these 2 first-round picks with no hesitation. And I'm adding a prospect on top of that.
Wow.
Do you think that's enough?
So the Montreal Canadiens first round pick this season, like their own first round pick.
No. I'm saying just the Jets and the Flames and then a prospect on top of that.
Look, I think it's in the realm of possibility. Would I do it? Yes, because Trevor Zegras is being heavily undervalued right now. I mean, look, I think it's going to depend on what happens with that Flames pick, because there's obviously contingencies and we're still waiting on, whether they're going to hold on to that pick for another year or give it up. But yeah, I think making that move is absolutely in the realm of possibility. And I'll tell you why, Liam. And I don't think I need to convince you. I'm preaching to the choir here. But Trevor Zegras was a 9th overall pick in 2019, and he was still undervalued at that point. He put up 18 points in 7 games in his second World Junior Championship. He absolutely destroyed that tournament. In his World Junior season before his draft year, he put up 9 assists, strictly no goals in 5 games. I mean, this guy is incredibly talented. And yes, people want to harp on him for being strictly talent and no positional skill or, no hockey IQ. But 61 and 65 points on a very, very bad Ducks team is no joke.
No joke at all.
Give me Trevor Zegras. And if we're buying him at his lowest right now, I think, you know what? I don't even think 2 firsts and a prospect is going to be what it needs to get it done in Montreal, for Montreal, excuse me. I think that first round pick that they acquired from Winnipeg, plus a few more assets, whether it's, an A to B, an A prospect and a B tier prospect or a B plus prospect, whatever you want to call it. I mean, look, I could see that move working because clearly Anaheim is fed up with Zegras, and I think that they'll move him. I think that they're trying to, play their cards properly because they don't want to get rid of a guy like Zegras for absolutely nothing. But I think when push comes to shove, they'll absolutely get rid of him. So a 9th overall pick 4 years ago, and he's put up numbers. Like, this is the perfect guy to slot in on this Montreal Canadiens team, this young Montreal Canadiens forward core.
Once again, he fits into that age range, that 22 to 24-year-old group that's going to come up and progress with his teammates and develop into, a playoff contender. So let's bring Trevor home.
I love to see it. You love to see it.
I had to pull it out.
We'll stay optimistic. We'll see. But like I said, I feel it in my bones. I feel a weird feeling that Kent Hughes is not going to just, let's put it this way. And I want to hear what you have to say. I don't think that there is a chance. I think that there is a 0% chance that the Canadiens use that Winnipeg pick in the draft. I don't think they use it.
It honestly reminds me of what was the pick we traded to Colorado? It was a late first that we got.
Correct.
So this reminds me of this situation or that situation. We're gonna, try to make a move and get another roster player who's in that age range that, is gonna be able to fit into this group perfectly, exactly like Alex Newhook was. So, I'm gonna agree with you there. I don't think they're making this pick, and the Flames pick is next season. We'll see how that goes. We're kind of praying. There's so many conditions on it.
That's the problem.
Is this Florida's pick? Is it Calgary's pick? I have no idea. But either way, we're gonna pray that it's a high draft pick, and if we're able to move that pick as well, we could be in for a good return. But just going back quickly to why the Ducks will trade Trevor Zegras to the Montreal Canadiens is because they also have another top 3 pick that they're going to get this season, top 4 pick, on top of Cutter Gauthier, Leo Carlson, Mason McTavish, Troy Terry. Trevor Zegras is just not fitting in there anymore. And it's time for them to move on and continue their rebuild.
I mean, the truth is, Liam, I actually don't think it's time for them to move on. I just think that they think it's time to move on. And I don't think that's the truth. I think that they're going to be making a serious mistake, because I think that any team that he goes to, and if he's insulated properly, why can't he be a 70, or why can't he be a point per game player? And at his very ceiling, why can't he be pushing 100 points? Now, that's at his very ceiling. We're talking about hypotheticals here. But anyway, look, if that's the approach that the Ducks want to take, Pat Verbeek, that might be his approach. And if he thinks that Zegras isn't great for the culture, that's also one thing. There's obviously so many hypotheticals and so many things that play in here. But nonetheless, I feel it in my bones. Look, let's wait. If it's not this deadline, which I don't think it will, I think it would be a very, very, I think there's a very strong case to say that it could be a off-season move right around the
Yeah,
draft. So
that's
we'll
fair.
be patient. We'll be patient. And let's hope that this Montreal Canadiens top 6 looks significantly different come the 2024-2025 season.
Yeah.
But we'll leave that at that. Well, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, not just in terms of trades, but health as well. that we're
Correct.
praying
Doc
for.
and Newhook back as well, and then things will start to be taking shape, especially with hopefully a top 5 pick this coming season. But if the Canadiens continue to win like they did a couple nights ago in Washington, we're gonna have some serious problems. Now, obviously, Slafkovsky scoring 2 beautiful goals like that, I mean, I'll take that all day. But you know what? The truth is, and we're not going to go into prospects here too much, but more forwards are climbing the rankings of the draft rankings. And I'm not saying defensemen are slipping, but guys like Ivan Demidov and Caden Lindstrom are making cases for themselves. And Cole Eiserman is just sitting there at the top, and Macklin Celebrini is sitting there at the top too. So, I mean, ideally the Habs get a forward in this draft, but if you're going to want a forward, you're going to need to pick in that top 5. So we'll wait and see. We're approaching the 30-minute mark. There's only one more thing that I really wanted to talk about, Liam, and that's the upcoming schedule for the Canadiens.
Yeah, we can get right into that one.
32 games left. Obviously, again, like I said, this is obviously a lost season in terms of, making the playoffs or being competitive, and largely in part due to injury and, just being a young core and not being able to withstand the brutality of the league, of the NHL league. But Liam, the Canadiens have 2, and we mentioned this last episode, but the Canadiens have 2 games this weekend, 2 matinee games, both at 1 p.m. Saturday, Sunday. One against I have to pull it up. I know one's against Dallas. The other is against
the Ducks on Tuesday.
The Ducks. But they play 2 on the weekend.
Yeah. So we got Dallas on Saturday, St. Louis on Sunday.
Okay, St. Louis on Sunday. That's
then
it.
The Ducks on Tuesday.
Then the Ducks on Tuesday. And then we'll be back after that, presumably.
Yeah. Well,
so,
then we play the Rangers on Thursday. We'll say.
So we'll see. So we'll predict these next 4 games here. Yeah. Dallas. So we're in Montreal for 3 games straight. Dallas, St. Louis, Anaheim, and then we're on the road. I say we. The Canadiens are on the road. We
are part of the team. Without the fans, there's no team.
It's a good. That's actually good. But anyway. Then we're on the road. And then the Canadiens are on the road in New York. Liam, where will the Canadiens sit after this 4-game stint? And what do you have any players in mind that are going to overperform?
Well, on Saturday we will most likely. No, I'm gonna say the Canadiens take the loss on Saturday. Sorry, but then I'll give the kids the win on Sunday. I think it's probably a kids game, right? The kids come out for the matinee games. So hopefully the Canadiens get one for the kids. So we'll go 1-on-1.
Wait, but hold on. Back up for a second. It's also Super Bowl Sunday, February 11th.
That's true.
Let's predict that game too.
Will they be locked? Oh,
who do you got though? Who do you got though? Like, what are we saying?
Give me Patrick Mahomes. Yeah, I got the Chiefs. Man. I like Brock Purdy's story. I like the 49ers. They got so many weapons. CMC, Ayuk, Debo, Kittle. O-line is great. Defense is great. But you can't bet against Patrick Mahomes.
You can't bet against Patty Mahomes.
No.
Come on.
Patrick Mahomes, baby.
7 AFC championship games in 7 seasons, 2 Super Bowl wins.
He's him.
The only Super Bowl loss he's had is to Brady. So I think that he'll take the win, and obviously that might not be America's choice, but because people really, really want to see Travis Kelce and Taylor Swift lose. And you know what? I think every sports fan can do without that. But hey, I think that at the end of the day,
who's your performer of the game outside of Patrick Mahomes?
Who's my performer of the game? That's a good question. Can it be on the Niners, or it could be anyone?
Sure. It could be anybody you want.
I think George Kittle's gonna have a huge game. I think he's gonna keep them in it. I think he's gonna go for 2 touchdowns in this game, and over 100 receiving yards.
He's the guy that's got to be, the top player in order for the 49ers to get over that hump and finally win. But I'm gonna give Rashee Rice some love here.
Ooh.
I'm a big fan of Rashee. He's so
Guys,
quick.
Liam knows football.
I've been in fantasy about 2 years now, maybe 3. So all my knowledge, couldn't name you a defensive player, but I can name you a lot of offensive players. But yeah, give me Rashee Rice for a big game. Obviously, Kelsey is gonna be there, but I feel like they're gonna play some tough defense against him. Patrick Mahomes is going to Kelsey all day, and they say that every game, and he breaks out in the playoffs. But I think Rashee's got to be a factor in order for the Chiefs to win.
Fair enough. Well, that's our Super Bowl segment.
Yeah.
Then the Canadiens. So you said loss to Dallas, win against St. Louis, Anaheim, New York. What are those 2 games looking like for you?
So we got another tank bowl against the Ducks. Hoping for a loss there, to be honest, but I think we're gonna win. And Trevor Zegras will be in appearance to see his team win. And it's not the Ducks. So I got the Habs winning against Anaheim on Tuesday, and then against the Rangers, presuming, we'll be recording on that day. I'm going to say, we'll probably come back to it, but I'm going to say they take the loss. And who's the goalie there? We've kind of didn't touch on that. Shesterkin or Quick? Quick's been hot.
Interesting take. I mean, look, to me, it seems like Shesterkin's obviously still their starter. There's no doubt about that. But when a goalie's hot and you're still fighting, not fighting for a playoff spot, but you're fighting for the seeding in the Eastern Conference, I don't think New York's taking that very lightly. So they're riding the hot hand. But I wouldn't be surprised if Shesterkin's back in the net in the next game or 2.
Yep.
But definitely interesting.
Right. Your takes?
I think a loss to Dallas makes a lot of sense. Dallas is obviously like pushing to be the top team in the West. So I'll take a loss to Dallas there. I think the Canadiens lose to St. Louis.
Damn,
not for the kids on Sunday, but
weekend for the kids.
But the truth is that I think that they're going to beat Anaheim, and I think they're going to beat New York. I think the Canadiens have a decent track record against the New York Rangers, and they're playing at Madison Square Garden. So you know what? Give me the Canadiens over Anaheim. Give me the Canadiens over the Rangers. I think that they go this week. I think they go 2-2 this week.
Okay. So we both got 2-2, just different teams they'll win against. I feel like they always lose to Western Conference teams. I don't know why.
They have a hard time, and that's why they might actually lose to Anaheim. But we'll see. At home, though, different story.
Yeah, different story. Performer of the week. Go ahead. You got first one this time. It's always
all right. First. Fine. Give me. Wow, this roster is so thin. It hurts.
Gignac?
You know what? I'm gonna go generic. I don't care. Just give me Juraj Slafkovsky. He's just gonna keep going. I think he's just gonna keep going. You know what my prediction is, Liam?
What is it?
4 games this week. I think Slafkovsky finishes this week with 4 goals in 4 games. That's it.
Ooh.
That's my hot take, but I'm going for it.
That's a take. That's a take. Love to see it happen. Last week I said David Savard, and honestly, he had a great week. He honestly had a great week. At the end of the game, he was balling. I saw a bit of the game. I had to miss a little bit, but David Savard had a good week, and I'm going to take that as I was correct, that David Savard was the player of the week. But, I'm going to go with... I went defense last week, so I think you went Allen, right? Or Monta. You went Allen last week.
I went with a goalie, but that goalie didn't even end up playing. So
okay, so bad take, but I'm gonna go with a forward. Give me. I don't want to say Josh Anderson.
If you say Brandon Gignac, we're gonna have problems.
He looked good. He actually looked good. Just give me the top line. It's gonna be basic, but I'm not going for a singular player. I'm going for the top line, and I think they're gonna continue to produce. Like we said,
how many points combined for that top line through 4 games?
I'm gonna say they all are point per game minimum.
So you're looking at like almost 12 points in 4 games there.
Let's say 12 plus. Let's say 14.
Sorry, 4 per. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, it's 4 games. It's actually 4 games. Yeah. So let's say 16. Let's say 18 to 20 points. 18.
Jeez.
To 20. Well, that's
18 to 20.
Well, that's averaging over point per game.
My God. Okay. We'll see.
Well, that's basically our whole team. So
So 18 to 20 points for that first line. I have 4 goals in 4 games for Juraj Slafkovsky. 2-2 for each of us. Different losses and wins come against different teams, but nonetheless, same record. Canadiens are finding their way through the season. 32 games left. We'll get there some way or another.
And give
But
me a
Liam,
damn Primo game. I just want to see Primo play.
I don't even
I've
know
had
at this
enough
point. What are
with
we
this
doing with this 3 goalie rotation?
Yeah.
But we'll see. We'll see. But Liam, I think we'll leave it at that for today.
Yep.
It's been an absolute pleasure as per usual. That was episode 74. So we're climbing, guys. We're climbing. Thank you so much for listening as per usual. And we'll see you next week.